$300 to $400 a month? How much are your dreams and goals? Addictions are generally a deep desire to not feel something or to feel less. It's a disconnect from the self because the self doesn't feel safe to experience themselves fully. When one does experience themselves fully, change can start to unfold. The issue is most weed smokers escape themselves for so long they don't really know who they are without weed. So they spend $300 to $400 a month to return to being okay, not knowing who they are, not desiring to connect to their sober self, to connect to the issues that are coming up in their life, such as anxiety, depression, for very legitimate reasons, to be addressed. Do this long enough, and it becomes almost impossible to remain sober. This is why you hear some people say, I don't know why I do the very things I don't want to keep doing. Yet time and time again, I find myself still doing them. Most people's dreams and goals are expensive. So by getting to the root cause of this addiction to weed, you can potentially free up $3,600 to $4,800 every year for those dreams and goals. That's $18,000 to $24,000 over the next 5 years. So what are your goals? What are your dreams? What are the things that you have been curious about or wanting to pursue in your life? What are some of the steps that you may need to take to get yourself towards those goals? How much will those things cost? What is the time frame on those things? How much time have you spent not even trying to do those things, procrastinating, a lack of motivation? Because marijuana is known to affect our dopamine levels quite negatively, and it can remove ambition. It can remove the drive. It can become a lazy-making type machine, something that you get stuck in and you can't get yourself out of, unless if you get sober. But let's face it, if getting sober was easy, then relapses wouldn't be a thing. People would just quit and move on with their lives. And if people knew what it was that the addiction was serving, what need that was meeting, they could address that, and then they would no longer have a struggle. But people often think quitting is more of this thing that you have to tactfully go about. Well, I have news for you. You were sober before you smoked, and you never had to tactfully go about it. You didn't have to eliminate friends groups. You didn't have to avoid driving past dispensaries. You didn't have to not think about smoking something that you've never smoked before. You didn't have to have an accountability buddy when you've already been sober so far in life. So my point here is that you are fully capable of being sober, but the only reason that you relapse is because when you picked up smoking, there was something that was going on in your life that seemed like the only viable option. And so you chose that as a way to get through life. And after you chose something like that, you kind of realize the convenience of being able to change how you feel in an instant. And usually that is the addiction for most people. If they are coming home from a shit day at work, rather than accepting that their job is miserable and maybe they need to start changing the trajectory of their life, they are already thinking about, man, when I get home, I can't wait to light this strand up and smoke it and enjoy unwinding from work. Well, if you have to unwind from your job, it's a sign that your job is not something that you probably want to continue. But let's face it, a A lot of people continue jobs that they hate. A lot of people continue to be in relationships that they hate because it's far easier to just procrastinate, to put it off and smoke a joint and just feel this nonchalant, non-care type of way. Because oftentimes when we make corrections to our lives, there's a lot of insecurity. There's a lot of unknown factors. It can be quite, daunting to think about how are you going to turn out in the next year? How are you going to turn out in the next couple of weeks if you do something drastic to change your situation in life? Most people don't want to go towards pain in life, and so oftentimes they will avoid it until it's impossible. And that's where you get these horrible symptoms later on in life where people used to get a lot of enjoyment from smoking marijuana, and now they start to find that they're having panic attacks, that they're struggling to enjoy being high, and that now it's a struggle between being sober and going back to the thing that they are trying to stop smoking. And so you get this back and forth oscillating theme within the mind of all these reasons that you want to be sober, and that's what helps motivate you to do so. But then when you're on the withdrawal end and your dopamine has to start kicking back on for itself because you're no longer getting it through the marijuana, your motivation's already pretty tanked right there because you have pretty much no dopamine in your system. Well, newsflash, then let's insert having some withdrawal symptoms. Boy, those are real fun to go through. Well, now the already non-existent motivation to continue your sobriety goes even lower. And that's where people often find themselves in the subconscious end of this relapse, to where their brain starts to say, you know what, maybe it's not that big a deal. Maybe I was just smoking too much. Maybe it was the wrong strand. Maybe I just needed a tolerance break and I had, a bad experience. And then they decide to go back. Well, it's better than taking a pill. I don't want to have to be on an anxiety pill. Well, I have news for you. Chances are, for some of you, you don't need the pill and you don't need marijuana. What you really need is to address the root cause. Why is your system revolting? Why is your system kicking up this anxiety, this depression, this ADHD, these issues in your life need to be heard. They need to be investigated, and they need to be seeked out in such a way that you get to the very basic fundamentals of why it is. Address those root causes and correct them on a subconscious level. And when you do so, now you're not struggling in your life with anxiety, with depression, with ADHD. And moving forward, now you're able to go through your life without that issue. And now sobriety kind of just happens naturally. It's no longer a resource for you to turn to weed to help you relax, to help you get out of that depression or whatever it may be. So if you're finding yourself struggling with being sober and then going back, and you don't want to be on the pill, but you also don't want to be on weed, but then you're not sure if you do want to be on weed or if you don't want to be on weed, and you keep finding yourself doing this little hamster wheel of an experience, and you want to stop that and finally be done and save that $300 to $400 a month, or that $3,000 to $4,000 range every year, or in the next 5 years, $18,000 to $24,000. Because if you've been smoking for any length of time already, my question to you is, how much has this problem that you've been avoiding already cost you? So if you're ready to finally be free of this and move forward in your life with a newfound confidence that this is no longer a theme in your life, reach out and I'll help you.